There are certain mistakes in Animal Crossing New Horizons that every player seems to make. And whilst Animal Crossing is a pretty relaxing and forgiving game, I definitely think these mistakes you'll want to make sure you avoid. So I've decided to take a look at some of the most common mistakes that players are making in Animal Crossing, and I'll be sharing those with you here in this video. So let's check out 10 of them. Starting us off, kicking out villagers. Now, just to be clear, I don't want to kick out any of my villagers, I love them, I'm just being mean to them for the purposes of this video, sorry B. A lot of players seem to assume that the best way of kicking villagers out is to be really mean to them, to hit them with nets and such and put them in pitfalls, but honestly, this really doesn't work. In fact, it seems like the meaner you are to them, the more they want to stick around. I believe it's more likely a villager will want to leave your island the higher friendship you have with them, so it's kind of the opposite of what you'd expect. It's like some weird form of reverse psychology in Animal Crossing. So yeah, you're definitely wasting your time hitting your villagers with nets and putting them in pitfalls and giving them bad gifts. It's definitely not making them want to leave your island any faster. Realistically, the quickest way would be to get an amiibo, invite them to the campsite, and use them to force out any village you want, but aside from that, you might just have to be patient. I can definitely understand why people would think though that being mean to your villagers would be the way to get rid of them. Moving on. So anytime that I've made a live stream where I've been touring viewers' islands, a comment that I get very often is people feel very down about their own islands as they tend to compare their island to others very often. And this is absolutely one of the biggest mistakes you can make in Animal Crossing New Horizons, comparing your island to other players. Whilst it can be good to do so in some ways to get ideas and inspiration and such, looking at other players' islands and thinking yours looks terrible is just not the way to go. Don't get me wrong though, I can completely understand these feelings. I think it's something that all of us had felt at some point when playing. But it's important to remember that everyone has a different experience with this game. Some people are incredibly into decorating and might spend all of their time doing it. Others might want to take it more slowly, or some might not want to decorate at all. You might want to do things a different way than you've seen anyone else doing. Regardless, your island is still unique, it's yours, it'll have something on it that only your island could have. I see so many people say their islands look terrible, but after the thousands I've visited over the years, I can honestly say that every island I've seen has been really unique and interesting. I often get people criticize my island and say it's too much of a maze and they find it confusing. But the thing is, it's my island, I play on it, it looks how I want it to, and that's the most important thing. Next, rushing through Animal Crossing New Horizons is another very common mistake, and I can definitely understand it because Animal Crossing is a very differently paced game compared to a lot of other Nintendo entries. But really, Animal Crossing is designed to be played at a slow pace, it's supposed to be super relaxing and chill. I definitely feel like some people can get caught up in rushing through all of the different goals, trying to unlock all the different buildings and maxing out their bells and nook miles and such, and whilst everyone is entitled to play the game however they want, I definitely think that sometimes it can be a good idea to take a step back and maybe take things a little bit slower. Ultimately, you'll know which type of gameplay is best for you at the end of the day, but I personally found there were plenty of times where I was really rushing through the content of this game, and then I got bored super quickly. The thing is, Nintendo never intended for people to rush through Animal Crossing New Horizons, but since when this game first came out we all had so much time on our hands, it made a lot of sense that we got through all of the content they had shared super fast. Nowadays, when I start up a new island, I really like to take my time with things. I don't want to lose that really great feeling that you get when you start up a new file. I also find that it just makes things a lot less overwhelming as well. Whilst it can be important to have some goals, maybe it's better to focus on one thing at a time rather than trying to do everything. Speaking of starting a new island, restarting can be a big mistake that a lot of players make. Now, I'm not saying that restarting is necessarily a bad idea. I've done it a lot myself and I've had so much fun with it, and I'm sure a lot of you will agree. But I do think it's fair to say that a lot of players have restarted and then ended up regretting it. Something that could be a good idea is maybe just flattening your island instead. I feel like that could be a neat way of, getting a fresh start on your island without losing all of your progress. And then if that doesn't feel like enough, maybe restarting would feel more worth it. I feel like a lot of people get really excited about the idea of restarting, do it, and then realize, oh dear, it's going to take me a long time to build everything up again, so I'm just going to kind of abandon the game. I've gotten so many comments from people who have been demotivated at the amount of work ahead of them when starting up a new island, so it's something I'd really only consider doing if I'm absolutely certain that I can't make things more enjoyable on my existing island. and flattening and creating a whole new theme and such could be a really great way of doing so. Another very easy mistake is letting your tools break. Now, of course, tools breaking is one of the major mechanics in Animal Crossing New Horizons, but there's a really clever way to avoid them ever breaking at all. If you've got customization kits and a DIY bench, you can simply customize some of the tools so that their usage will reset. This means even if one of your tools was really close to breaking, this will completely reset it and it'll be like brand new. Now sadly, not every tool in the game can be customized like this, only certain ones can. But for the ones that can, I feel like it's definitely worth resetting them. Whilst it's true that it's not too difficult to craft new tools or just buy them from Nook's Cranny, neither is customizing them in my opinion, and then you aren't having to spend even more of your resources, especially crafting materials, which often I find myself running out of. This is also one of those things that I absolutely wish I had known sooner in Animal Crossing New Horizons, because then I probably wouldn't have gone through hundreds and hundreds of different tools, some of which I really wish I could have kept. How about a mistake that people make with the DLC? I would say one of the biggest misconceptions about the DLC is that a lot of people think it's just for designing, but it's actually not. I feel like if you're able to buy the DLC but you haven't because you feel like it's purely for designing villager homes and that's not really your kind of thing, that definitely could be a mistake, because you get some of the best unlocks in the entire game for this DLC, like the ability to design your villager homes on your own island, a shop from Wardell that gives you access to so many different types of items, shops to purchase unique items in, unique DIY recipes to collect. The list honestly goes on and on and on, so if you haven't got the Happy in Paradise DLC yet and you've really been thinking about it, then I definitely think you should try and get it. I've never once regretted it. And I feel like if I hadn't unlocked some of these really amazing features, that would have been a big mistake for my Animal Crossing island. Because the majority of them are going to impact your own island in some shape or form, not just the Happy in Paradise archipelago area. Now here's a mistake that I feel like a lot of new players make, and that is selling absolutely everything. Now, whilst it can be a good idea to try and get your mortgage paid off as soon as possible with Tom Nook, so you'll need a lot of bells and such, selling literally every item and material you come across could lead you to a lot of regret. Some things are much harder to obtain than others, and certain items can only really be obtained once without trading. I definitely do some research before selling certain things, and maybe trying to keep a copy of one of everything. I feel like that's a safe way of making sure that you don't sell something you'd regret. The same could be said for selling every fossil right away, or selling every bug and fish. You might regret that later on when you want to complete the museum and suddenly you can't find that critter at all anymore because it was actually quite rare and you didn't realize it. So yeah, definitely look up the things that you're selling before you're selling them. Or generally just try to keep a copy of one of everything that you find. I feel like that's a great way of doing things. Moving on, how about playing at different times? Now, I usually tend to play around 4 or 5 PM in the game. It's my favorite time of the day. I love the music. I just love the way things look. But you can miss out on so many things by not playing at different times and seasons and such. During nighttime alone, you'll find certain critters that you can only catch at this time, special characters you can only meet at night, and so much more. So if you have to, maybe even consider changing your time around a little bit so that you can make sure you play at different times so you don't miss everything. Understandably, a lot of people have to work or have to sleep early and such, so it'd be a shame if they missed out on certain things. Now, if you head into resident services, a mistake you might be making is not regularly checking the recycling box in there. You might have thought that the recycling box is just full of absolute junk that no one really wants, but this isn't necessarily true. You can actually find some items in here that you can't really find anywhere else, like the sloppy set of furniture. There can be some really cool finds in here that you absolutely would not have expected, so I always think it's a good idea to regularly check this out. After all, everything that you take from there is completely free, so really at the end of the day, there's no harm in doing so. Finally, one of the biggest mistakes you can make in the entire game is if you have Nintendo Switch Online and you have not made sure that your island backup is enabled. I believe by default this backup will not be enabled, so a lot of players haven't realized that they haven't actually gone and turned this on, then something bad has happened to their Switch and they've completely lost their island. So I would absolutely go and make sure that the island backup service is turned on and working properly. I personally would be absolutely devastated if I lost my island, so this is something that I've had to make sure was turned on. I know a lot of people don't have Nintendo Switch Online, so sadly there's no other way of backing your island up without it, I believe, in the game itself. But if you do have it, then this is absolutely one of the first things that you'll want to make sure you do. So yeah, those were 10 mistakes that everyone seems to make in Animal Crossing New Horizons. Let me know which of these you made yourself down in the comment section below, and what are some other mistakes that you think players should avoid. If you made it to the end of the video, be sure to comment Bob's Gang down below so I know you did. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like, and if you haven't already, consider subscribing and turning on channel notifications for more.